Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tacticam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tacticam Reveal at tacticam.com. Tacticam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Osseo gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Osseo's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Osseo. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. If you're like me, e-scouting isn't just part of the process, it is the process. And nobody's doing it better than Spartan Forge. This is a veteran-owned company that built the only science-based scouting platform on real GPS collar data and artificial intelligence to predict deer movement. But where it really shines is with their imagery. Spartan Forge now has a high-res UAV coverage for 80% of the whitetail states, down to 5-centimeter detail. That means you can see trails, old logging roads, cuts, even subtle vegetation changes that most apps completely miss. And if you really want to get nerdy, their LiDAR layer breaks right through the canopy so you can see the forest floor. Gives you some visibility to those hidden draws, ditches that big bucks absolutely love to live in. Add in historical wind data and a desktop-only features like Eagle Eye and Cyber Scout, and you've got the most advanced hunting app out there. Start your risk-free 14-day trial today at spartanforge.ai. Welcome to the Truth in the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam Reveal cellular cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 469. And today I'm joined by my buddy Tony Peterson to talk authenticity in hunting. So stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And I got on my buddy. Man, you look like you've been hunting, dude. I don't. Like, you got a beard. You know what I mean? Like, you look like you've been in the woods. Like, I stayed relatively clean shaven this season. I probably should have let the beard grow. Like, if my face matched how I felt, like, it would be way worse than this right now. You know what I mean?
Well, you're a high-flying corporate guy. You got to look good, buddy. I'm a squirrel rider, man. I can be feral as I want to be.
Squirrel rider. Nice. This is the first year that I actually took, like, my beard trimmer with me on my hunting trip, because I was staying and working some from during the trip, where I was like, I did have to think about it, because my plan was to possibly stay till Thanksgiving, and I ended up being there 3 weeks and coming back, and I talked about that stuff already, but I did take the beard trimmer because I was like, man, if I'm off for 3 weeks, or I'm hunting for 3 weeks, and I'll shave before I leave. This is kind of shit you got to think about. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll shave before I leave. I still need to take my beard trimmer there, because if I stay till Thanksgiving, I was like, I'm going to be a mess. I'm going to have client calls. I'm going to have to be on. I was like, all right, I got to make sure I tighten up the ship before I have to go back to work. But man, when you're squirrel writing, dude, you're just going full on, like, Charles Bukowski over here, I think.
Dude, I want to clear this up, lest people think that I'm like, truly can just not give a shit. I just had a meeting a little bit ago where I'm filming a show very soon in a very cold environment, where I'm going to be camping, and it's going to be pure misery. I've been pissed at myself for pitching it since I pitched it this summer. And I just found out that our window to make it happen with the conditions and trying to get in there is going to happen very soon, and it's going to be really cold. So in panic, I'm like, man, I got to get a haircut and look like I should be on TV instead of looking like I'm living in a mountain writing, like a manifesto about how much I hate the government. So I actually am concerned a little bit about like personal grooming for being on TV, but I might, if I can't get in, I'll just be feral. I'll just go Ted Kaczynski. I don't care.
Right. Yeah, dude, just Kaczynski it up, dude. I'm a fan of it. It's
dude, I've told this on other podcasts. There's probably people listening to this who are young enough who don't have a clue who the Unabomber is. But
right.
I went to high school with a girl whose dad hunted a lot. And so she and I kind of always had that connection, and I kind of got to know him a little bit. And he actually was out in Montana hunting elk one time years ago, probably in the 90s, and hit a bull, couldn't find it, and ran across a dude living in a shack out in the middle of nowhere, got his number just in case, like, hey, you run across this bull, and turned out to be Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Did the FBI ever visit him? Yeah, I know, right? Did he get a visit from the FBI at one point?
I don't think so. I doubt it.
All right, yeah.
I don't think they were that tight.
They were that, yeah, right. They were sharing like squirrel recipes or whatever. Might have been a different story. You know what I mean? Like they weren't sending like Christmas cards or whatever. How wild would that be?
They weren't that close.
Yeah, that would be wild, dude. Like you just because I mean that guy would have never known that guy was going to be that guy. He's just like some crazy dude living in the mountains. It's like he'd be like, hey, I could use some help getting some supplies up to this place once in a while. And you're like, yeah, hey, buddy, yeah, I'll give you a hand, and then you're exchanging Christmas cards. And next thing you know, your name ends up in his manifesto. And like, you're just shit out of luck. And all you did was try to get some squirrel stew,
He finds your bull. So to pay him back, you deliver a couple packages for him.
Dude, how terrible would that be?
Oh, God.
Like, how do you explain that? Like, I didn't know what they were. Like, imagine that conversation.
Sure,
like, no,
buddy.
seriously, he helped me pack out my bull. I owed him. It's like, oh my God, dude. Yeah, I don't think the feds would care too much about the bull conversation. I'm going to say pretty low on their list of give a shit.
You'd like to think that you could get that squared away, but that could be the kind of thing that could really mess up your life for a while.
Yeah, you would like to think you could get that squared away, like an honest person being like, hey, like, I don't know, like he helped me pack out my bull. He needed some supplies one day. He didn't have a truck, so I took some stuff to him. And he's like, hey, like, if you're going back to town, can you just drop these things off for me? Be like, yeah, sure, why not, buddy? You know what I mean? It's like, and you tell that story, and you would hope someone would think like, hey, this guy's like a reasonable dude. Like, he's a stand-up guy. Like, do the background check, do whatever, make sure you're not nuts, whatever you got to do. Right. But you would like to think that they could go, yeah, Tony Peterson guy, like, he seems like a pretty stand-up guy. Like, he seems pretty normal. This just seems like he crossed the path with a nut job, and his compassion got the better of him. Right. And he did something nice for somebody that just, was not a mistake even, but just like wrong place, wrong time. Right.
Right.
But unfortunately, probably wouldn't go down like that.
Right. I mean, I've told this on a few podcasts before, but years ago, I went out to hang some tree stands on a farm in southeastern Minnesota and walked down this little 2-track to go into this part of the farm, and saw a car, like a new car, like pushed off into the woods, just off of this road. And my first thought was, I'm going to find a body in there, just because, like, just was so out of place. And I walked up to it. There's no body in there. And then I could see a screw or like a bolt jammed into the keyhole in the ignition. And so I called it in. Well, actually, I called the landowner, and I said, hey, I'm out here. I found this. You want me to take care of it? And he was off doing something. So he said, yeah. So I called the non-emergency line, and, they're like, all right, we'll send somebody out. Just wait around. And so I'm waiting around, and the cop shows up, and he starts asking me all these questions about this bar in Rochester, Minnesota. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm like, I'm not the guy who stole this car. Like, if I stole this car, I would not have called you guys in to come get it. And just so happened that one of my buddies is a conservation officer down there, and he heard us over the line or whatever, and came over there because he was out working, and he's like, that's not your guy. But that was like a little window into getting questioned for a crime that you definitely didn't commit. So I'm definitely not going to bring any pipe bombs to the P.O. box for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that dude. I saw this
I mean, it's turned into a meme, I think, at this point, but it was a headline of this article where this drunk guy or this guy got lost, and apparently he was drunk, right? And he showed up drunk to the search party and tried to help find himself. And it took him a while to realize he was with them.
Right. It was me all along.
Yeah, here I am. Like,
Who would have thought?
I was like, that shit's brilliant, dude. I was like, I hope there's a day where I have like just a few marbles rolling around, you know, and that like, and that's where my capacity is at, where I'm like, yeah, I'm lost. I call myself in, hey, I'm lost. And I just kind of try to go out and help them find me. You know, it's like, it seems like something fun to do when you're old and kind of like got like 2 marbles left. You're like, yeah, it seems like a fun trip. You know, let's go outside and have some fun.
Dude, if I make it that old, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do heroin just once, just to see what all the hype's about.
Just to see what's up.
I'm not going to risk it now.
Right.
I'm not your guy.
Right.
That's going to go sideways for me, for sure. But if I'm like in a nursing home, I might try it.
Yeah. Well, you can give me a call. We'll do it together. It'll be fun. You know what I mean? We'll hang out together and be like, hey, man, let's go ahead and Lane Staley this thing up. You know what I mean? It's throwing some rock from the 90s. We'll look at some like magazines from the 90s where everyone was like, you know, heroin chic, you know, where like the look was to be, you know, look like you were like starving yourself to death, but really you were just doing a bunch of dope. You know, that was like the in thing. Couldn't be any hotter unless you were doing it.
Do you know how they figured out that he was dead, Lane Staley?
Wasn't this, at least I read a story where Sean Kinney, the drummer, went to his house on multiple occasions and like he never answered the door. And that was kind of how they figured out. That's at least what I had read, or I might be misremembering the article.
So I heard that, I read it too. I read the book about him, but I heard that it was, he had five dudes in Seattle on his payroll, just out scuffling the streets for heroin all the time. And his accountant saw that he wasn't requesting any more money. And he had been continually requesting money to fund this habit. And then the accountant was like, we better send somebody over there. Because this is uncharacteristic of this dude to not be asking for money here in whatever time period it was.
Right. Every Wednesday, he needs $1,500, you know, or whatever it is.
Man, that Unplugged performance that they did where you see him and he's just like a ghost.
Yeah, like it's just like a shell is up there. But crazy part is, it was like that was probably one of their best performances that I could recall, just because it was like I mean, he looked terrible, yeah, and his voice was like it was almost like he mustered it up one more time, right, to do it, you know. And it was, I don't know if it was because his vocals were really good in that. I mean, he messed up some lyrics. I remember, like, if you listen back, I forget what song it is, but he's singing like the wrong part. You know, I mean, he was in key and everything, but it was just like the wrong lyric.
Right.
And so I don't know if it was like his vocal was that good in that performance, or if it was his vocal performance coupled with like how haunting he looked. And how married that was to how haunting their music was, where it was like the perfect vocal and the perfect visual with the perfect soundtrack made it legendary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever see them?
Not in the original. Oh yeah, no, I did in the original. I saw them in 1993 during the Dirt record. I saw them. Yeah, like I saw them like right after the Dirt record came out. So it was like quintessential Alice in Chains before the downhill slide, when they were kind of peaking. Like that was whenever, you know, shortly after Singles, like the movie would have come out, right? And Wood was on that, which was like the big hit. And then Rooster was obviously another big hit, right? So it was the summer of 1993. And it was, I mean, it was one of the best concerts I'd ever seen. Like it was just unreal. Like they sounded like the record. They sounded great. Performance was great. Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like it's definitely burned into my memory. You know what I mean? And then I saw them later with William Duvall in like shortly after William Duvall joined the band. Like it was like mid 2000s, so like whatever that was, like 2008 or 2007, like whatever that time frame was. Because oddly enough, it was, so I was in the band and playing, and my buddy was a sound guy, and his girlfriend did a lot of booking for this one venue in Orlando. And I became pretty good friends with her, and we played her venue quite a bit. And so we were going to the Alice in Chains show, and she and I got to talk, and I never really knew this about her, but she actually lived in Seattle for a long time, like during her formative kind of teenage years or whatever. And she was just a couple years older than me, right? So she would have been closer to the age, when I say a couple years, like 5-6 years older than me. So she would have been closer in age to like all the guys that were in the bands from that era, essentially,
Right.
you know? And so we got to talking one evening, just like over beers or whatever. And she actually was good friends with Lane Staley. Like they kind of grew up together. And so it broke her heart every time she heard like an Alice in Chains song, because it just reminded her of him, essentially, right? Because it wasn't just like the shows. She's like, yeah, she went to shows, but it was like hanging out on someone's couch before he was anybody, you know, like going to parties whenever they were teenagers and stuff like that. Like just like the dumb stuff you do when you're kids with all your friends. Like that's what she was doing with him and some of the guys from that scene. And we had tickets to the Alice in Chains show, and a buddy of ours got us tickets because he did all the booking for this venue. And so we got free tickets, and we had great seats, and we're watching, and Alice in Chains comes out. And I remember they hit the first song in the first vocal harmony, and I look over at her, and she's just sobbing. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, you okay? She's like, and she was just like, oh my God. She's like, it sounds like he's on stage. She's like, William Duvall sounds exactly like him. And he does. I mean, if anyone's ever listened to it, like it's uncanny how much he sounds like Lane Staley, and especially live where you don't hear like every little nuance, you know, from a recording. Like she had to leave. Like she couldn't do it. Like it sounded too much like him that she had to leave the venue, which was wild. But
crazy.
Yeah.
I never got to see him. I love Alice in Chains. I never got to see him.
Yeah. I would say it's even worth it to go see this this version of it. Like, cause they're still great. I mean, when you look back through it, you know, Jerry Cantrell was really the force behind it from a writing perspective, and even vocally, you know, it's like if you listen to the stuff post Lane Staley, the way that they put vocals together still sounds the same, right? And that's because that's how Jerry writes. And Jerry sang a lot, even when Lane was in the band, he still sang a lot. And he was really the kind of driving force behind all that. Now Lane's the one who gave it that like the thing that made them the thing, right? But you know, Jerry was kind of like the architect of that stuff. You know, his sensibility of harmony and stuff like that is what kind of made Alice in Chains like the form that they had. Lane Staley was like the thing that put them over the top.
Right.
But yeah, great band, dude. I saw so many good bands in that era, like during their first like records and stuff like that. Like I saw Tool during the Undertow record in '93. Yeah, which was like, that was, you know how you have like a few life-changing moments, you know, you can look back in your life and go and pinpoint and be like, yep, that was like a crossroad. This was a crossroad, right? That was one for me, was whenever I saw Tool in 1993. I remember like I'd heard like the Sober song, you know, on MTV or whatever, and I was like, oh, these guys are weird, you know. Went to see them, and they're playing, and I just remember looking at my friend Matt at the time, and I was 14, I think, and I was standing there, and I just looked at Matt, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck we're watching. I was like, but I'm pretty sure I want to do that the rest of my life. That was like, you know, and that was like the moment where I was like all in on the music, and that was kind of the thing that propelled me, was that kind of like that specific moment, you know, and changed like the whole trajectory of like the rest of my teenage years, and like, you know, into my 20s, essentially all through my 20s. And yeah,
dude, I mean, you know, music is obviously subjective, right? But I think that exposure to people who are really good and really talented, like naturally talented at something, and then they push it through, it is so important to life. Like, I really think that that's one of the problems we have right now. Like, I mean, you see this in the hunting industry. It's like almost everyone can present themselves as pretty special.
Yeah.
You know, like there's an oversaturation of people who appear to be like someone you should follow, right? Yeah. But it just can't be that way. And I think
No.
we're like in this weird space where we're like, we've been inundated with, and it's not just in the hunting industry, right? Like it's everywhere. Like we're inundated with people who are trying to show us that they are unbelievable at something. And a lot of it's bullshit. And you're not getting that moment you had seeing Tool in 93. You're not getting that out of most of what we're exposed to today because it's not real. And it's,
go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, I was going to say, even if it is real, you're fed it in a way that's like, that's how you get the stuff that isn't real too. Like you're not standing there in the pit looking up at people playing live music who can't fake it. And everybody in the crowd is in the same trance. Like it's just a different thing now.
Well, I think even if it is real, you're seeing, just let's keep it in the hunting space, right? Everyone's got a podcast, a YouTube channel, like whatever the case is. I try to make it as clear as possible. Like I'm a normal dude, there's nothing, I'm not a quote unquote expert. I have some really good friends who are really, really good that I take stuff from, borrow from, implement, etc. Right. But I don't ever try to position myself as a person who has it figured out. I try to be honest where it's like, I don't have a whole lot of this figured out and I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe we can figure it out together. More brains are better than just mine. Right. And I think what we run into is that, everyone's, posturing to a degree. So even when we do see the one that's real, even when we can kind of have the bullshit filter and we can weed out the bullshit, I still feel like when you see the real one, it's not as impactful because you're fed pseudo real ones all the time and you somewhat become desensitized to an object that is special, right? Because even if you're not seeing the real special one all the time, you see enough that kind of look like it often enough to where when you see the real one, you're like, yeah, that's a real one. I've seen some stuff like it, even though I know that that's like the real deal. It'd be like walking through looking at replica cars and knowing that the real car, whatever car tickles your fancy, that's a fancy one, or that's a rare one. If you went through a lot and there was 20 of them and they all looked legit, it would make the legit one a little less special because then you realize like how good of a job someone can do to knock it off. Right. And so it's just a really weird space to be in. And then you and I were talking about AI before we started down this path or down the conversation of the podcast. We were chopping it up about AI. And then you throw that into the mix on top of it. And it's like, man, who the hell knows what's real anymore anyway? You know what I mean?
I read something the other day, like this is the first phase of our existence where we can't trust video evidence. Like we can't trust anything anymore because you can create anything. Yeah. And I don't know where it's going. It feels not great, but that's just been our experience with technology. For everything we've come up with, there's been people fighting it, And so I think, well, this is just the next thing.
Well, it's just the next thing, but I think that's what makes, having real personal experiences matters even more now. Because to me, that's really the only thing you can trust. Like you can't experience something like you used to be able to your point, you could watch a video of something and like, get a feeling from it. If someone filmed something or whatever the case was and it was real, for example, right? You could get a feeling from it. Like, so say you're watching a documentary about grizzly bears or whatever, right? Just making something up. You could maybe get a feeling from it because it's like, oh man, that's a real grizzly. Like that's a real, but we see so much video now that's fake. It's like, even if that is a real thing, it's like, whatever. I can make a video just like that. I could put some fake grizzlies on a video and have it eat somebody, like, big deal, which makes like those personal experiences of actually going out and doing the thing like that much more important now, because that is really the only way. That's the only way you get that primal original feeling of discovery, if you will. Right. Does that make sense? Or is that crazy talk?
Absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday. I kind of we're slowing down on deer hunting now. We're not done yet, but like we got some bucks killed, and so now I'm hunting pheasants. And I was just yesterday down, I was over in western Minnesota and hunting by myself. I had a couple buddies from Meat Eater come out. We hunted a little bit and then they left. So I had one morning to hunt by myself, and I went out with my dog, and the cattail sloughs are full of water, but that's where all the birds are because people always hunt the grass and they push them all in there. And it's just the same thing year after year. And so I'm following my little lab around in those 7-foot tall cattails, and like, you're up to your knees in mud the whole time. And it's just like, I was like, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm like, whatever this is that I'm doing, this is like my conduit to having an audience still. Like the threat of AI taking over podcasts and writing, which is definitely going to happen to some level, like for sure. Like writing, I made a living for a long time writing a lot of gear pieces and how-to articles. That shit's going away. Like they're just, and then I think about like my podcasts, and I'm like, I would like to think it's tied enough to personal experience where it's just not going to go away soon, but I could see somebody making something similar with all the information that's out there. And so it's like, but there's still like that one piece where it's like, if you get out and do this stuff, and that's why, and you know this better than anyone, that's why there are just certain people in the hunting space who you look at and I look at and I go, that person's just legit. Like you just know that they're in the shit all the time, and they're just like working through these problems, and they're successful at a level that most people aren't because they're doing that thing. And it's like, I don't know what is going to happen to us, but I know that AI doesn't make the next Andy May. Like they're just
right.
That guy is made in the woods, not in a server room. And so it's like, it's a weird thing to think about, but like sometimes, like it's something that we just have to be aware of. But there are times when I'm out there, like when I'm slogging through those freaking cattails, where I'm like, I don't know how yet, but I feel like this is going to keep me around long enough to like see it through on my own terms.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think even, I think we could even look at, how people respond to things that are happening in the moment and that are happening to someone real versus things that are kind of canned, if you will, right? Because there was a time when you look at just like, you can just take Instagram, for example, right? There was a time where, a person could make hay, if you will, on that platform by doing some photo shoots, having some canned content, putting it out, right? And it's like, hey, here's all these like canned images of me doing this, that, the other, right? And you could even time it seasonally, and it would feel appropriate, and they would do, and like and they might do well with like engagement or whatever, for example, right? But I think like what I've noticed, at least, right? It's like, because I'm not on there all the time. I don't post stuff on there all the time. Like I'll post something like, for example, when I put this podcast out, I'll have a little write up about what you and I talked about to a degree, right? And then I'll have an image from you, of something that you've done. And those do like, all right. But whenever I'm actually out in the field doing stuff and I have time, right? Because it's not my day job. Like whenever I was on that hunt and I was out hunting for 3 weeks, a lot of folks was just like wanted to keep them posted or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I'll try to check in like once a day or once every other day, just give a quick update, whatever. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm seeing, like blah, 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 blah. Right. And, the amount of attention that those things got was like through the roof. Right. And they weren't anything special. It was me doing analog stuff, like having real experiences. Right. And I think there's going to be a pendulum swing where the people here are still doing that stuff, and being real. This pendulum, I feel like, is going to swing back toward them because people are going to be so overburdened with having to try to filter through where they're being misled or where something's being misconstrued, that they're going to pine for the thing that's real, even though it's not as flashy, even though it may not be as sexy, even though we're not all out conquering the world every single day, to be like some people might suggest, right? In their, in their online persona. I feel like it's going to swing the other way because it's going to be so far removed from human that they're just looking for they're just looking for something that's human again.
Right. I mean, I hope you're right. And I think you're right. And I also think that that's like, I mean, I don't know when I'm going to drop it yet, but I just wrote a foundation script about how much money there is behind a lot of the big deer that are killed, because I mean, maybe this is a bad parallel, I don't know, but if people had a real grasp of a lot of the deer they see killed by people they consider really, really good hunters, and they knew the amount of money that was behind that, it would change. The reason they don't know is because it would make it a lot less special. And
Yeah.
it was a weird one to write because I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus, like specifically, but
Right.
it's kind of one of those things that just, you know, like when you do what we do, like I share cameramen with people and you hear stuff and you're just like, how does this guy kill huge bucks all the time? And you're like, oh, like a lot of these deer are they're literally being reserved at an outfitter because the outfitter advertised he's got a 180 or a 190, and people don't really get this, but a lot of people can throw like 20 grand at that situation and reserve that deer to hunt. Yep. Or buy information on deer. And I'm talking big money stuff, like really big. And so I don't know. I don't want to sound like bitter or like whatever. Like I want to be like, I don't want to do that like out of like vengeance, like, or whatever. Like I want to do it just to be like, you need to understand, like if you're sitting there and you're like, I'll never be like that. It's like, yeah, you won't, because you can't afford it. Like you just got to run your own race, you know? And it's not like, I like capitalism mostly, right? Like I like being able to start a business and do your own thing. And like, I think it's the best system we have, even though it's flawed. But I'm like, you can go out and find your nut, you know, like it's out there. But that kind of stuff, when you're like being fed this read on people and you're like, oh, like that guy's the best whitetail hunter in the country. Like some of those people, there are millions of dollars behind those deer. If you add it up for how long it's been, and any one individual buck might have been paid for by like what it would cost your kid to go to state school for a year on one deer or one elk. And so it's like, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to do that. Like I'm not saying that shouldn't exist. I'm just saying like it's a lot muddier than people think. And there's a reason that's not part of the story. Like they don't want you to know that exists.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like what I would say for me, it's like, I don't begrudge anyone to do that. If you have the means, like to do whatever it is you want to do, then by all means, you know, do it. Where I have an issue, and I think the line that you and I both probably draw, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like I know you pretty well. It's the disingenuous kind of like line of where it's being represented as one thing. You may not be represented as one thing, but you certainly aren't opening up the whole playbook for people to know how everything went down and letting them draw their own conclusions. And you're feeling okay about them drawing the conclusion you hope that they draw, as long as you don't share the information that would be damning, right? To your reputation or whatever the case is, right? Like there's one that I can think of off the top of my head from this year where it's like, it's funny because I saw a post, and I saw a post from the person who, you know, filled their tag. And then I saw how they portrayed it in their post. Right. And then I saw another post, which you would think that maybe this person would know that this would happen, that of the place in which that deer was killed, that company or group also posted it. Right. And the two posts were not the same. You know what I mean? Like, they were, and not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever, dude, like your point, like, dude, run your own race. But like you omitted one thing in yours because you're hoping that as long as nobody asks you, it could be whatever the person, however they draw their conclusion. Right. But then these people did it because they're supporting their business. Right. And so they certainly portrayed it as something different. Right. And so I saw that and I was like, I kind of had the same feeling you did, where I was like, dude, just like own your shit, right? Like that's part of it. It's just like, whatever it is, just own it.
Right. Man, the male ego can do a lot of damage, buddy.
Dude, it can.
I mean, You know, and I should say this because I put this in that episode. I talked about the advantages that I have too. And part of the reason why I do the hunting that I do mostly is because I feel like that is my tether to my audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I do a Candyland hunt, I'm going to tell you because I don't want that. Like that is a different thing than that. Then you going out into the big woods and killing a big deer or whatever. Like they're vastly different. And I think that like we sort of have an obligation for that, right? Like you just spent 3 weeks on the road. Like your life situation allows you to go do that. That's a huge advantage.
100%.
Like a lot of people don't have that. And I talked about that even when I started out and I was broke as a joke doing public land hunts and living out of my tent. I still wasn't paying for bows. I was still getting free camo. Like I still had advantages and I didn't have to go home to a job. Like that was my job. And so if I needed to carve out 10 days in a state, I could do that. I usually didn't because that was too much, but like I could. That's a huge advantage. So even though I'm not writing a check for a deer, like explicitly paying for it, I'm like, I have that luxury when a lot of people don't. So even when people are like, oh my God, you're killing big bucks on public land. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, like you have to understand that even if you're going out and hunting where everyone else can, which you are, you can time your hunt a different way. You don't have to go home to work. Like it's a different thing. And so I think, I feel like we just sort of have an obligation to more of that stuff, especially now, because it's like we're in a phase of the industry again where like big deer don't even matter. Everybody's killing them. They're everywhere. We've figured out how to do it. And it's like, so just killing the big deer used to be a huge thing. Like if you were somebody who could go out and kill big ones 25 years ago, you were special because of that. Now it's like, dude, they're everywhere. Everybody's killing them. So now it's how are you killing them?
Yeah, I've seen multiple 200s get killed this year. Not that I've seen with my own eyes, but I know either personally know the person or know of multiple people just in my sphere, right? That multiple 200-inch deer have hit the ground, right?
Which is insane.
Yeah, it's bananas. And going back to what you were saying, like, I try to be as straightforward as possible about, the advantage that I have to your point, which is time and being able to go away because I work remotely and stuff like that. Like I just spent 3 weeks, hunting and, to where it's like, it's only afforded to me because of the flexibility of my job, and to your point, it's like, and it's afforded because I have a podcast and I have some people that I've partnered with that I get some free stuff to your point, or they support the podcast, through some financial contributions and so forth, right? As advertisers or sponsors or whatever the case is. And I'm able to use that extra income to, build the trailer that I have, which is what I did, right? That way I could go on these hunting trips and stuff like that. And I made those priorities, right? Like where it's like I didn't invest that money or whatever. It's like I put it back into hunting and doing the things that I like to do, and even whenever I was out on this trip, I was hunting a walk-in, or publicly accessible property. But when I found the deer that I wanted to kill and he was on a piece of private, like I went and door knocked and got permission. And it was important for me to make sure people knew that like I was hunting a private piece of property that I got by door knock permission. Because if I killed that deer, I did not want people to think that it was not that it probably wouldn't even matter to most people, but I just wanted to be forthright with the fact that like, yeah, I was hunting on this piece of private permission property that I knocked on a door and got the old lady told me, yeah, I could hunt it. So I'm going to now go hunt it and I'm going to try to kill this deer. Right. And, I ultimately ended up losing permission because the dudes also hunted it, weren't happy that I was hunting it. So, that happened. So I don't know if I even told you that.
You didn't, but the big deer thing like that is just nuts right now. I mean, that's this trophy hunting thing that's going on right now is costing so many people so many hunting opportunities. And it sucks.
Dude, I was at full draw on a deer that I'd be happy to kill anywhere else, anytime, right? It was after I saw the big one that I was trying to kill at 25 yards. And don't think that I didn't think of you whenever I missed those couple not missed, but like couldn't shoot that deer on multiple occasions because I told you told me the last time we did a session together, like, dude, you go and you kill a big deer with that your first year. I'm going to hunt with a stick bow from here on out, you know? And I was like, I was a little cocky, and I was like, get ready to get your stick bow out, son. Like, and it almost happened. But while I was in that area, you know, I ended up seeing like 7 bucks that day. And one was like 140-ish inch deer that I just didn't have time to draw on. And I probably wouldn't, because the big one, you know, was like roughly 160, came running behind him. And he was at 20, they were all at 25 yards. So I didn't have a shot. I needed him at 20 or closer. Right. Well, after I saw them, I made a small move, and that was a big learning for me this year. It was just like trad bow setups versus compound setups. Like, I was always, I mean, I had 3 encounters with that big deer at 25 yards, all 3 times, and just couldn't get him killed. And then, so I made a move after I saw him, because I thought he might come back through this area, right? Because he was running bucks off like that whole day, pretty much fighting and running bucks off. And so I made a small move, and then another buck came through, and he was probably like 130 inches. And he stopped at like 18 yards. I was at full draw. It would have been a great first like trad bow kill off the ground, ghillie jacket. I was holding, and I just let down. I was like, he's not the one I want to kill. I want to kill that other one. Right. And the next day I lost permission. Like there was a couple guys from Louisiana that were hunting that piece too. We ran into each other. I was like, I left them a note and stuff whenever I left, and like, here's my phone number. Let's make sure we're not tripping over each other. And they just went to the landowner and complained, and basically left a note on my truck saying like, yeah, this tract of land is no longer available to hunt. So that was that. But
were they paying for it? Did they lease it?
No, like whenever I talked to the guy, I said, yeah, I had permission, and he said he did too. And so it just sounded like there was permission access for it. So it wasn't like a lease situation or anything like that, as far as I know.
So they just got you kicked out?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was, I mean, I don't want to go into details, because I've already did a podcast on breaking it down, but essentially I ran into one of their friends walking in that day, because I was waiting for the wind to shift, because I needed, like, the wind was going to shift like early morning, and I was like, I can't go in. If I go in on the backside, the wind's going to shift, and I can't go in that way because the wind's wrong to go in. It's good to go in from this direction, but the wind's going to shift. So I need to wait until like 7 o'clock when the wind finally makes its final shift to where I can access and get into where I needed to get into. And so I was walking in with some light, obviously, and I ran into one of their buddies walking through this cut bean field, and we kind of met, flagged each other down, and he's like, you hunting in here? And I just said, yeah. And he was like, oh, well, you go get him. He's like, I already killed one. I'm tagged out. He's like, I'm just doing some scouting for some buddies. I haven't filled tags yet. I was like, oh, okay. You guys from Louisiana? I could tell from his accent. I could see that I'd seen their trucks driving around a couple different times.
Right.
And basically he said, yeah. And I was just trying to be nice. Like, and this is the last time, like, it's terrible that I have to think this way now, but it's like, I'm just not going to be nice anymore on these trips. Cause I was trying to do a guy solid, because I thought he was going to like the walk-in access that was around there. And I didn't want to deter him from either scouting for his buddies or his buddies not coming to hunt there, because it's walk-in, publicly accessible land. I'm not hunting it. You know, it's like, right. And I don't want them to feel like I own this block. Like, you can't be here. Like, so I'm not trying to be a jerk. And so I just said to him, I was like, hey, like, if you want to be in there, like, that's cool. I'm hunting this private piece. I have permission, you know? So if you guys want to hunt the public that's there, the Weehaw stuff, I was like, you know, go at it. Like, you're not going to mess me up at all. And even if you do, I was like, you have every right to be there. So do what you got to do, you know?
Right.
And, but I did, just to be courteous, I just said, just so you know, I've had an encounter with a particular deer, like, you know, 3 different times at this point. I was like, I'm going to be in here pretty much every day until I kill him. I was like, cause it's just a matter of time. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you got a stick bow. And I was like, yeah, 25 yards. It's like, it's just a matter of time. I'll get him close enough. And I was like, give me another day or 2 and I'll kill him. He's like, okay. And so I was just telling him that as out of like a courtesy. So, you know, like, you're going to see me walk through here, right? At least on the days where we got a north wind, I'm going to be using this as access, you know? And then, so then I saw them that evening, like his 2 buddies walk in. So they walked in at 4 o'clock during like prime time to basically bust my hunt up, essentially. And then we spoke. We weren't rude with one another, but neither of us was interested in talking to the other one. And I basically said to him, I said, well, I did say to him, I said, I saw your buddy earlier this morning. We walked in and ran into each other. He's like, yeah, he said as much. And I said, cool. So you knew I was in here, and you came in here at 4 o'clock to bust up my hunt anyway. And I said, also, I was like, I just find it weird that I tell him that I'm hunting a deer that I've been on for a couple different days.
Right.
I was like, and I've been scouting and glassing this piece from the public and watching it. I was like, since the Tuesday before Halloween, and I've never seen you in here. I was like, I just find it a coincidence that all of a sudden now you want to hunt this,
Right.
you know? And so,
Dude,
so I basically called him a liar. It's like, so there's that.
I'm so sick of that shit. I mean,
Yeah.
I did a podcast with Mark and Dan the other day, and we kind of got on the trophy hunting subject, and I think I view it a little different than those guys do, but I'm just sick of that shit. Like one of my neighbors, came over and talked to me when I got back from Nebraska, and how'd the hunt go? Super nice guy, got a brand new baby. He only shotgun hunts. He can't draw a bow. He's spent some time in the service and messed up his shoulder. He's whatever. Good dude. Likes to just shotgun hunt, wants to kill a deer. He's like a very typical Minnesota shotgun hunter, right? Where they have the farm they hunt. It's his wife's relatives. He has his stand. The uncle has his stand. The brother has this stand, whatever, like I go my spot, you go your spot. Well, right. He's like, yeah, they called me this year and said I can't hunt my stand now. And the first thing I said is because they saw a big one in there. And he goes, yeah, they saw a big one and they told me I have to sit somewhere else. And I'm just like, that's so shitty. Like, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know if I'm just like super jaded on this, but one of my really good buddies killed a really big deer this year. He killed it's a 9-pointer. So it's basically like a mainframe 8, and it went 172. Like a huge deer. I mean,
that is like,
right. He has a lease he shares. He's super generous with it. I've hunted with him forever. So he hunts some of my stuff. I hunt some of his stuff at different times. He's let my kids hunt out there. He's a good dude, right? He was just hunting like a good buck because it's close to his house and he's got a lot of time and it's a good place. Well, they had this deer in there, and he would have shot. They had several bucks he would have shot, but that one came in. He killed it. Unbelievable, but kind of a deer of a lifetime. I got to hold it. I'm like, holy shit, right? Huge,
right?
And he's super happy, of course, but he's like, man, I don't know if I'm going to tell anyone if I ever kill a buck like that again, because people like come out of the woodwork and like, oh, I was hunting that deer. But people get so weird about that stuff. And it's just like, it doesn't freaking matter, man. Like in the long run, like, yeah, it's cool. It's not that important to be like that much of a dick about that stuff. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bummer. I mean, I think the lesson for me was a couple things, to be honest with you. One was like, need to be better on my trad bow setups, right? Which will pay dividends for me picking up the compound, right?
Sure.
Other thing was that maybe when I go on travel hunts, I don't use the trad bow until I have like some significant kills under my belt with it, right? Maybe that's something. Maybe the compound is the travel hunt bow, since I'm more invested into it, right? It's like my time. There's some money involved, right? Like for tags and stuff like that, right? It's like, so maybe like the trad bow just becomes like the Pennsylvania weapon, right? Because it's it's home and whatever. Because that the trad bow cost me a shooter in each state this year. So PAN in the plains. And then the third one was really, like, man, like I really sold out on that deer, and would I have just been better off? I mean, in hindsight, sure, I would have been better off just being like, it's on public or it's on private. I ain't even going to try to get access. I'm just going to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And try to find another deer that I'd be happy with, and not getting, and I tell myself this every year, but dude, it's like every year I fail the test. You know what I mean? Every year, like, I'm just going to hunt like a good deer, like something that gets me excited. And then like, it never fails. Like I find like a really good one and I'm like, that's it. It's that one or nothing. Like, that's all I'm doing, and then I get to the end of toward the end of the season. And I'm usually like exactly where I'm at now, which is like, I passed this deer, I drew on this one and then let down, it's like, you just go through like all the opportunities. It's like, I can't want for opportunity. Like, they were there. Right. It's like, so what's my issue? It's like, well,
my question would be, does it bother you? I mean, does it bother you if you devote yourself to a certain buck and you don't kill him and you don't kill a different one? Does it bother you?
No, not really.
Well,
I mean,
then,
that one bothered me more than anything, not because I didn't kill it, but because of how the whole thing dissolved,
right,
like the whole situation dissolved, right?
right.
It was more like I wanted to kill that deer then, or I wished I would have killed him the day before, just out of spite. Like it was that where
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, yeah, I was like, I would have rather killed that deer the day before and left a big gut pile, like right where they wanted to hunt, and been like, F you. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and them never have been the wiser of who was there, right? But that's a shitty way to think about it. But in the moment, that's how my brain was working. But overall, it's like I don't get broke up over it because I don't, you know, you and I've talked about this plenty. It's like I don't tie like my worth or whether or not I'm worthy of having a podcast or, you know, whatever the case is, to whether or not it's like I'm filling a tag or this, that, the other. It's like I'm trying to do something that makes me happy and that I enjoy doing, that I'm going to personally get something out of. And that's kind of how I go. That's kind of how I go after the season.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good way to do it, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It just so happens I find one that usually is like the thing that'll make me happy. And then that's the one that like I just kind of focus on, you know.
Right.
We'll see. You know, maybe I'm starting to see the Tony Peterson view a little bit more after some of these situations.
I just like shooting them, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I had a different year this year because I could actually hold out for some bigger ones just because the girls
you
were
did,
killing.
man. Like you were like you started with the girls in the early part of the season, smoking deer, dude. Then you went on your run, dude. Like you've had a band. Is this? Let me ask this for whitetails. Like I know you've had years where you've put more bucks on the ground, right? Like we've talked about that in the past. But like, where does this season rank for you as far as like fulfillment?
You know, this was a good year, dude. I mean, I killed a like a 2-year-old 8-pointer opening night. Well, it wasn't opening night. It was my first night in Minnesota. So it was like 3 days into the season. Just partially because of where I have to hunt. And I knew like it's 25 acres. It's going to get blown up. And so it's like, I go in, I try to get something there quick and just get the season started. That's kind of like my kickoff. And then, you know, like I do that in between hunting with my daughters. Right. So I'm like, I'm pretty low standards where I'm hunting here in the cities. And it's like, I'm just piecing together something between my daughters. But you know, my one daughter killed a spike in Wisconsin early, which was great. That's all she wanted. But then we got a chance to hunt Minnesota together, and we haven't been able to do that as much, just schedule wise and everything. And they both killed bucks. That daughter who killed the spike killed a nice 2-year-old 8-pointer. That was a really cool buck. She was stoked. Her sister killed a forky. And so I was kind of like, man, you know, we have 4 bucks in the freezer before the rut. And I had this Nebraska deal, and I was kind of I'd been poking around on this new public in Wisconsin quite a bit. Like my free time when I got to hunt for myself, I've been really kind of messing with this area that I'm trying to figure out. And so I just kind of like didn't really feel a lot of pressure, right? Like the Nebraska thing was different because that was a meat eater film, and I had Steve and Steve's buddy. So there was like a work side pressure thing, but not like a personal pressure thing. Like I felt like I was going to kill a buck there. It was a private place. I mean, it wasn't like I don't know if I'd call it a Candyland hunt because there aren't very many deer there, but it was one of those deals where you're like, I can set this up, I can run cameras, I can put in my time, and the likelihood of something coming by the first week of November is super high. So it wasn't like a hard deal. The hard part for me was the stress of the work part. But it just was nice to just be like, I don't need to go in and fill a tag in 2 days and get the hell out of here. I'm like, we've got a bunch of deer in the freezer. I'm going to hunt late season with my daughter. So I'm like, I can actually kind of just do my thing again during the rut, which is sort of hasn't been available to me a lot in the last several years. So it was just nice. And it just worked out, you know, like some years it does, some years it doesn't.
Right. What, I know you'd mentioned like Nebraska is one of those places for you, like keeps trying to make you move there. Right. Like I saw you mention that. Right. And so like, what is it about it that is enticing to you that makes you think at times when you're hunting there, that you're like, man, I can move here. Cause I get that feeling sometimes depending on the place that I'm at. And like, I love hunting the plains, and I spent 3 weeks there this year, and I've been there a lot, and I love hunting it. I don't think I could live there, like at least in this particular area. Right. You know, just because like there's nothing there. Right. And it's just like dust everywhere. Like, it just seems like unless I'm hunting there, it's like, cause I found myself like, if I weren't hunting, cause I was also working there. Right. So it's like part of my time I was just living there, working there, and then hunting in the evenings like you would if you just lived there. And part of me was like, man, living here would kind of suck. Like, I was like, if I weren't hunting, I was like, this kind of blows.
So when I say that, it's not just the hunting, right? Like if I was going to move anywhere to hunt, I'd just move to Iowa. Like I just would.
Right. Yeah.
If that were like, you know, if that were the most important part of it, that's
you could maybe move in. You could maybe move in with Dan.
Dude,
you know, you can maybe.
I wouldn't say that I'm going to rule out moving to Iowa at some point. Like I like Iowa, right? But the reason that I like Nebraska, I mean, I've had great hunts there. I've hunted turkeys there. I've hunted deer there a lot. But man, to me, it feels like home. Like it feels like where I grew up. Where I live here in the cities is nothing like where I grew up. Like I grew up in a tiny town. You know, I graduated with 70 people in my class, right? Like I knew everybody, you know, dairy farmers, like the whole thing. And I go to Nebraska and I'm like, these are like the people that I have like a common, like we have something in common. Like our existence is like, there's like a tether there. Like we're connected somehow. And I just love it. Like I love the people down there. And I'm also really, you know, like I did a North Dakota hunt this year, didn't shoot one, passed up some little deer. I had a great hunt out there. Like I had so much fun. I was on mule deer. I was on some really big whitetails. Had to cut it a little bit short because I had to come back for a funeral that came up. Like it was one of those hunts where it was like close, but it wasn't meant to be for me. But man, I went out and I hunted this spot in the morning. Didn't have anything going on, and I had a fresh burn that I found that had a lot of deer using it. It had real nice green, fresh growth, and it was like a 150 acre food plot. I mean, there was like, but it was like not easy to hunt because all the trees got burned, and it was like, okay, you know, the deer are going to come here. They're going to come from that side probably because that's where there's still a little bit of timber, but it was a hard thing to figure out. So I'd go in there, I'd hunt safe usually in the morning. Then I'd go in and I kept progressively moving in on this thing for my evening sits because I knew I was going to blow it out because you couldn't get out without just everybody knew you were there. But, you know, I went out and hunt in the morning and I took a nap on the riverbank and woke up, did a little rock hounding, looked for some fossils, and I, you know, just kind of messing around. And I was like, man, I love being in a place where it feels like you could look down at the dirt and find something that could like rewrite a little piece of human history or a little piece of history. And just like, there's like a wildness to some of that stuff that I don't feel like I get as much, you know, in the Midwest and the East, or, you know, like at least if you drew a line through like straight down through Minnesota and you went to the right of it, like when you get into that part, it's just like a different feel. And I love a lot of that stuff. Like I like big woods and I like deciduous forests. I like all that shit, but there's something about that, like raw, just like exposed rock, like rivers that have just carved their way through the land. I like that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. The, I don't know, like I used to think the place that I was going, you know, felt kind of like that. Like, I feel like I've hit pockets of that in the plains where I felt like, yeah, this is the place for me, you know, or where I feel like I belong or whatever. It was just this trip. Maybe I was a little jaded because of like some of my experience there in this one. Maybe that left a bad taste in my mouth. So maybe I kind of soured on it just from that potentially. But I think the one thing that I did realize is, how much, you know, and maybe it's because I've just had a lot of time in this place now, and or in this type of habitat and setting, where I found myself kind of daydreaming about the mountains. You know what I mean? To a degree where it's like I used to daydream about the place I was just at. And I don't know why, but I was just thinking about like those landscapes. And like when I start thinking of deer hunting, like and bow hunting specifically, what does my visual entail? and it entails more of like what I encounter whenever I'm in the mountains. Like
Right.
that's what I think of. And I partially think maybe because it's the part that I like about hunting in the plains is somewhat makes me miss the part that is the intriguing part or the surprise and delight part that you get when you're hunting in the mountains, which is when I'm in the plains, I don't feel like there's as many secrets because I can
Right.
see so far and I can see the deer I want to chase, and it just becomes a matter of like finding him. And that's a fun part because that's a chess match, and I don't want to
Right.
take anything away from that, right? Like that's what drew me to it, and I still love that. But it somewhat, I think, made me have a deeper appreciation for kind of doing the scouting and like understanding like the picture that's been painted in, during the course of the season and what's the next move going to be. And that just surprise that when you're in the tree, this deer just appears and you may or may not know him or may not have ever seen him. Right. And it's that part, I think, that spending as much time as I have, in open country has made me kind of maybe romanticize a little bit more about that spontaneity that like the woods, the mountains, the hills kind of give you, if that makes sense.
I think that in a very roundabout way, what you're describing is what we all are afflicted with, which is just the grass is always greener syndrome. Because
Yeah.
what you're talking about, I mean, for people listening who've never done like a plain state hunt, the visibility of the whitetails is awesome. Like it's so fun to go out knowing you're going to pick them up with the glass, right? Like, but like you said, you do that for a while and you're like, that's freaking cool. But you're like, I want to get back in where I'm like in the timber or I have to work to get to something. And now there's a secret around every corner. Like the mystery's back. And I think that's what's good about traveling to do this stuff. And I mean, what you're describing there, because you've done the Kansas thing quite a bit, is like that's just like one of the reasons I just try to go to new places. Like just because whatever it is now, we so often you look at it and go, I want to go, like you've heard this a million times that people are like, I want to shoot a 300-inch bull elk. It's like, no, you want to go hunting? Like you want to go elk hunting. Right. But like we frame it up as like, well, I want to draw Iowa so I can kill that giant. Like, but what you figure out after enough time is you're like, man, just traveling to these places is like, you're just putting yourself in a new environment that's cool as hell. It's different than you're used to. And now you have to solve the problem that's hard enough to solve at home. But now you're putting yourself in a different situation. You're like, well, now I'm here and I have this advantage, but I don't have this advantage. Like I can see them, but I have nowhere to set up because there's no trees. Like now you have a new series of things to solve for. And I think the more that you lean into stuff like that, the more you get better at all of it and you learn to appreciate it. Right. Like you said something about like, you see the deer out on the plains and you're like, oh, I watch him go into this draw, bed down, come back out. Or I watch him do this thing, or they come into this corner to feed or whatever. And it's like, you kind of like the mystery's gone. You're like, I kind of can see his life in relatively like predictable detail right now.
Right.
But at the same time, you might go out there and see a bunch of prairie chickens flying around that land somewhere. And you might be the kind of person who has a bird dog and go, now this environment's offering me some kind of new challenge. And so it's like, that's what I like about that stuff is like, I know that we're just talking deer here, but when you go do that stuff, like you find other reasons to go other places and keep feeding that machine. And I just think that like, I think that's super important. Like, I think you can stagnate at home pretty easily. And I get it. Like not everybody can go do this stuff, but like one thing that was a super eye opener to me was, for a long time, I spent my time in southeastern Minnesota deer hunting. So I'm in deciduous forest, lots of good crops. I'm just north of Iowa. I might get by the river and have bluffs, but it's like, it is like a environment, like it's a specific kind of deer hunting environment. Right. And it's great. And then, I moved to the cities or I worked up in northern Minnesota for a couple of years. And then you start hunting around swamps and you're like, swamps suck. And then you get in them and you're like, it's kind of cool that like this exists or this pattern exists. And then I started hunting pheasants out in western Minnesota in an area that never interested me at all. And before you know it, I'm taking a trip out there to muzzleloader hunt deer because I keep jumping them out of these cattail sloughs. And I'm like, you don't necessarily need to go, 3 states away or, the $1,000 for the non-resident elk tag and the 10 days off of work and the 2,000-mile drive. Like it doesn't require that to find something like this. And I think that's like so important. And that's one of the reasons I bitch constantly about the non-resident resident fighting stuff is like, let's just not take that away from people. Like let's find other solutions, because people should be able to go experience a little adventure somewhere else.
Yeah. And well, that was the other thing too, was just on this past trip, and maybe, I think grass is greener, right, was definitely one of those things. It's just maybe I was missing it a little bit or something for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But I definitely think, I know I was having this thought, like while I was hunting, which was, and you and I've talked about this before, like the resident, non-resident thing, having access and stuff like that. The area that I was in, I would say, not exaggerating, probably 40% of the weehaw that had been there in the years prior that I had been there was no longer there. And I was talking to people who were also hunting like the same similar area, a couple guys from PA that I ran into that they actually hunt the piece in PA that I hunt. So we talked a little bit about that, which is kind of cool. It's like you travel 1,400 miles and you're like, hey, where do you hunt in PA? And he says, I'm like, oh yeah, no way, me too. Like the same piece, you know what I mean? Which is wild.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. But super good dudes. And I actually plan to connect with them like while we're in PA. But we were kind of talking about, because they've been hunting the same area in that area as well for years. And they just said, like, are you seeing a lot of pressure? I just said, yeah. I was like, and I said that I had noticed, just based on pins that I had marked on weehaw pieces that I've either glassed in the past, hunted in the past, or scouted in the past, that probably 40% of what I had marked was no longer available to hunt. Right. I was like, so it's not, as like an tag allotment, I think is pretty much the same. I was like, so it's not more tags. I was like, it's just that you have the same amount of people on less land, essentially. Yep. And I think was when I started thinking about hunting mountains, because I was like, there's the beautiful thing about hunting those plain states and stuff like that is that you can see. The bad thing about it is that most of it's easily accessible. So there's not a whole lot of deterrent for somebody, right? And the deer you can see, anybody else can probably see too, right? And you have kind of glassing vantage points and stuff like that it's not as flat as you want to think it is. You have some specific glassing vantage points for each kind of parcel potentially, right? And everybody kind of knows that that's where you need to be to glass. And so it just kind of becomes a free-for-all to a degree whenever you lose access to certain pieces of property and you're cramming everybody onto one. It was outside of like having that deer to chase, like I'll say it wasn't as good of an experience as I've had in years past. Even take out the year that I killed that deer. If you compared it to the years prior that I didn't fill a tag, it wasn't as good of an experience as it was those years, just based on the ability to go and have free reign on a bunch of different kind of public or walk-in access units, right? And that was the big thing that I noticed. And it made me think of you, because we've talked about that a bunch, just about like non-resident access. And then that's only part of the equation, because the other part of the equation is like, where do they go whenever they show up? Right. And that's what I was kind of experiencing on this trip to a degree.
Well, what you're talking about is so frustrating to me, because I think the best answer we have to a lot of our problems is figuring out how to open more land to the public, which benefits residents and non-residents. Mm-hmm. But you'll see situations where, people leave gates open, or there's complaints about shooting too close to the house or something. So we are our own worst enemy that way. In a lot of ways, when you get those opportunities where states are good at opening up private land to the public, that is such a gift. Yes. And we've proven that sometimes we can't handle it, and that sucks. The other side of it is you see there's always a payment or a tax incentive behind those programs, right? Like either the state's paying them per acre, or they're getting a huge break on their property taxes, or both. There's something there to incentivize that, because nobody's going to open it up for no reason, right?
Right.
And then like we saw this in Wisconsin, where there's a managed forest law program where a lot of the land that we used to hunt was in this program, right? And it's specific rules, and they get a huge tax break. And, you pull that land out, you have to pay back those taxes, or that's the way it was. But they changed the law somehow. So it didn't, the impact of pulling your land out wasn't as severe as it used to be. So we went from, you know, so many acres between grouse and ducks and deer and everything that we did over there. And in 1 year, we lost a shitload of land. And I'm like, you know, I get it. Like, I get it. It's private land, right? But then we have to look at that and go, how do we solve this again? And then one of the things I always think is like, man, we are so conditioned to raising license prices for non-residents, and they're very cagey for raising them for residents in any given state. But I'm like, if there were a direct, like in Minnesota, we pay $3 or $5 for our walk-in program. So you get a stamp, and then you can use this land that's open, you know, through one of those programs. And it's like, you literally pay this, now you can do this. And I'm like, that is such a simple model that could be implemented everywhere. And it, you know, if the land isn't opening up enough, increase those fees. Like, a certain amount of people will pay them, and everybody who pays them is going to benefit everyone. You know, like, it's just generally like, instead of just being so restrictive and taking something away, because man, we lose stuff and we take stuff away, we just don't get it back. And that's hurting all of us.
Yeah, and that was the conversation that we were having actually the one day at the truck, because they said, you know, do you think, I don't remember which one asked me, but they asked, do I think that any of that land will come back? And I was like, man, my experience in the years that I've been coming out here is that once a piece goes away, it doesn't come back, right? Because I was like, it's either they pulled it out of the program, or they sold the land and the new landowner doesn't want to participate. I was like, or it's been leased. Right. Either by like a larger leasing company, like an outfitter or something like that. I was like, or a private group. Like, those are typically the things that happen, because most of that land in that area stays in a family, right? Like it doesn't, like, because they have large tracts, right? They might have 2,500 acres, 3,000 acres, 4,000 acres, whatever the case is. And if all of a sudden, like, their land was in Weehaw before, and now this year it isn't, it's probably not because they just decided to pull it out of Weehaw because they're getting a financial incentive to do it, right? The only thing that would make them pull it out of it is if they had a better financial incentive, which is either an outfitter came in and leased it up, or a private group came in and leased it up, right? So,
I mean, but you hear stories about them pulling out of programs too, because the payment's just not worth the pain in the ass of having hunters out there. You know, I mean, it can break a lot of ways, but it's just generally a net negative for all of us when that shit happens.
Right. So what's not a net negative is Tony Peterson getting his Moby Dick in the big woods. That's not a net negative. How's that for a hard transition?
Man, I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Right.
For a while there, I was like,
"Ooh,
sounds like Clint's off in the ditch here, about to hit the neighbor's freaking gazebo."
Speaking of not shutting gates, you know, we're about to lose access.
Yeah, you know, I have gotten my ass kicked in northern Wisconsin for a long time, and I've killed some decent bucks over there, but I've never killed a big one. I started hunting over there in like 08, 09, somewhere around there. I guess I would say I probably got kind of serious about it probably about like 2010. So it has been a while. I have never even shot at a Pope and Young buck over there. I've seen a couple of giants, like a couple of 160s. I've seen a handful of really, really good deer, but it has been just the hardest for me. And every single year I've been like, I love this so much and I hate it so much, because it's just low density, lots of hunters, tons of predators, you know, just like, it's people who are listening to this who don't know what like big woods hunting is like. It is just an environment that's just more difficult than ag country, open country. And I'm talking up north, down south. Like, it's just generally, you have huge tracts of timber and very limited fields, limited openings. It's just tough, you know? And I ended up that buck that I killed this year. So I had been bouncing around on there's a pretty big chunk of county land over there that I found some stuff where I'm just like, I ran into some does there this year. At some point I'm going to figure it out. It's like, I found it trout fishing, whatever. So I spent some time on that early, spent some time in some places I found big ones on public. And then I was bouncing around on my my 30-acre chunk over there that I still have, and then my buddy's property where he's got like 120 acres. And after going to Nebraska and killing the buck that I did there, I came back and I was like, I kind of just want to go hunt for fun and not be like, guerrilla warfare mission to kill a big one on public or whatever. So I'm like, I'm just going to go, if I want to sit on my land, which I hardly ever hunt, I'm going to do it. Or if I want to go sit on my buddy's land, or if I want to go to that county land or whatever. And so I went over there after I got back from Nebraska. I think I got over on, November 10th. And I hunted all day for 3 days and never saw a deer. Not a doe, not a fawn, nothing.
Nothing.
And I guess I should back this up. All of that happened, but in the end of October, I hunted over there with one of my daughters, and we got our asses kicked too. And the last night we went to my buddy's place and sat on this hayfield he has. And I'm like, maybe a scrapper will come out and walk by. Like, that's kind of what you're hoping for there. I wasn't going to let her shoot a doe because the deer numbers are super low over there this year, that I was like, I don't want to kill any of the does. We don't need them. So we're hunting for antlers. Anyway, we sit, no deer show up. And right at last light, this wolf pack lights up in the swamp. And we've had wolves around there since they've been there a long time. Right. But they're always like, you're never like, they live here, like a pack lives here. Like they move around, they'll arc in and out. 1 year we had a big male that moved in. I had him on camera all the time, but he was alone. I don't know what the story is there. You hear him, you see him, but it's like very, you're not like, that's not like a huge factor. You're not like the wolves are going to move in, my deer are going to move out. But I heard that and I was like, I have never heard a pack light up here. And I'm like, in your head, you're like, how's this going to change things? Because it's probably going to have an impact. And so during that trip, I had found this scrape in a spot on my buddy's land where I was like, this is just like, I kind of don't understand what this is. Because they're not going to, it was a good scrape. I'm like, they're not going to make this where deer aren't going. Like, this wasn't one of those ones a buck just kind of made for the hell of it. Like, you're like, there's intention behind this. Right. I almost hung a camera on it and I didn't. Came back from Nebraska. When I got there, I hung a camera on that scrape just for the hell of it. Went and did my thing, and that camera started showing me just like a little bit of daylight movement with bucks. Like I had one morning a little scrapper go through. The next morning I had a doe run through and a couple of little guys chase her. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I had another camera fairly close by that I had all season long, and it had all of a sudden had a lot of coyote activity in the middle of the day, like unusual stuff. Like that's like a part of the country where everybody has a gun in their, like, you talk to somebody and you look in their truck and there's a rifle, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
If you're a coyote in an open field out there, you're in danger. And so I'm like, why the hell would I suddenly have a lot of coyote movement in the day? Like, I'm like, you could sit here in a stand and probably kill a coyote intentionally with a bow just because you could pattern them. And so maybe I'm just like slow, but I'm like, what's going on here? And then as I left one day, I noticed that across the road from my buddy's place, there was a standing cornfield in this area that this farmer had cleared out like 2 years ago, and he's planting, that used to be just kind of like fallow. And I'm like, are these deer, are they living close to the highway and going there? Are they out here because the wolves pushed everything out of the swamp and they're living close to like habitation and people? And so on the 4th day of the hunt, I hunted in the morning till noon, never saw a deer again. So I'm 3.5 days into it without a sighting. Super windy. I'm like, I'm going to go take a flyer and I'm going to go sit in that corner where that cover is on the edge of this hayfield by the highway that my buddy has. And so I carried a stand out there, hung it in this stupid tree. And I was like, it was like one of those things where you're like, I'm just doing this to hunt. Like maybe, right? Like maybe I'll see something, but I'm like, I'm going to put a decoy out here because these deer, if they see a decoy, they might come because they're just not that many deer. And so hung the stand, walked out there. I didn't even bring my backpack, which I never do. I didn't bring any camera gear. I didn't have a deer call with me. I was just like, I'm going to climb up into this stupid thing for 3 hours and sit over this doe decoy
And then go home.
Right. Well, I had 1 day left and I was like, I'm going to go back into the swamp and give it one more go. Cause you're like, to me, that's like it's just a pure volume hunt move, right?
Yeah.
Like if you find the last day I was actually going to go sit on that county land I found, cause I had a crossing on this trout stream. And I'm like, just maybe somebody will come through. So I get up in there and I'm like just sitting there absentmindedly in this like 30-mile-per-hour wind. And I heard a deer start running and I looked over to my right and there's a great big buck, like a 140 chasing a doe. And I'm like, holy shit. Like I never see deer like that over here. And he chases this doe out toward the highway. I try to call to him with my mouth. No good. Like he can't hear anything. He runs away, runs across the highway out of my life. And I'm like, I can't believe there was a deer here. Like maybe she's hot. Like maybe they're stacked up into this roadside cover because of the wolves. Like maybe it's kind of like, I'm like starting to think like maybe this is right. Like maybe I'm just not totally absentmindedly filling in the blanks. And I see another buck come out right from by the highway in this little tree row. And he's a nice 2-year-old looking type of buck that I'd shoot all day long over there. He won't look at the decoy. He can hear me calling, but he's like he can't figure it out. Like he's just like, I'm not gumming. And he walks away. I'm like, holy shit. Like I finally saw some deer and they're great deer for over here. He walks back out. I'm doing everything I can to get his attention because I'm like, just look at this decoy. Like, please come over here. And then I look over and there's another buck standing in the field. And this is a deer that I had been getting pictures of randomly. And I'm like, it's just like a beautiful 8-pointer, like killer buck. And I'm like, I can snort wheeze in that deer. Like he's looking at this other buck. He's going to see my decoy. I start snort wheezing at him and he's like looks at the other buck, looks at my decoy, looks at the other buck, and he kind of trots back to the woods. I'm like, holy shit, I spooked him. He comes back out and then that other buck walks across and they square up, circle, really cool, like put on a little show. They don't fight. The smaller buck runs off and this deer's like, I'm just going across the field. I don't know how they do that, but it's like he knew that chase happened over there. And I don't know. I have no idea how they could possibly know that. It's like my little black lab will mark a rooster I shoot in the cattails. And I'm like, you're 2 feet tall and they're 7 feet tall. How the hell did you do this? Like, but animals just can do that stuff, So I start grunting, bleeding, snort wheezing. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Like that deer's like you look at him and you're like, his mind's made up. Like he'll pay attention to me, but he's just doing what he's going to do. And finally he got way out in the field, took a hard right. And I'm like, well, now he's like at least partially pointed in my direction. And I called and called and called and he got in front of that decoy and turned straight at it. And I didn't even think about it at the time, but it was like, he's heard every doe and buck noise I can make with my mouth, right? So he came in and approached that doe decoy straight on. And he's walking in and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. Like, I can't believe, and so you're like waiting for it to fall apart, right? Because it always does. Yeah. And he hit 40 and I ranged him and I'm like, I don't want to shoot that far. Like, I want him 20 like I planned it with this decoy. Like, I'm like, you know how it is. Like you trad bow hunt and you're like, I could shoot 25 yards, but I shouldn't. So I won't. Right. It's just one of those things. And so he ends up circling around and he's all bristled up, but he's like, he came head on. He's like, well, this is a doe, but he circled around behind her. Like he still was kind of going to fight. Like he didn't know what was going to happen, but he just worked in perfectly. And I shot him through the heart and he ran 50 yards and tipped over. And I was like, it was honestly, I haven't been that excited to shoot a deer in a long time. And I can get pretty excited. But that one, I was just like, I can't, it's been like 17 years of trying over there. And it's still, it wasn't my big public land buck. It was still on private. Like I still had an advantage that way. So then I'm like, I still have this thing to chase over there, from here on out. But it was just getting to call to one like that and having those interactions. And it was like an hour where if you had it in Iowa, you'd be like, that was still amazing for Iowa. And it was in a place where like, I haven't seen I've seen 2 bucks over there this year previous to that, and I hunted multiple days, and both of those were scrappers, and one of them's dead in my freezer because my daughter killed it. Like, it's just not, it was just a really, really like gratifying, satisfying, like vindicating moment where I was like, oh my God, like you kind of sometimes forget, right? Like I'll talk to people, we have this girl writing for us who killed 2 bucks on public land this year with her bow, like her first 2 public land kills. And they were just little guys, but she was like so happy, like like a big accomplishment, right? And people would look at those deer and be like, what? But like to her, that was a big deal. And she did a great job. And it like reminds me that stuff's waiting for us out there. You know what I mean? Like that thing that I've been working at, like, yeah, I did that now finally, kind of, but I'm going to go do it again in a different spot. And it's just like, that is the thing that I love about it so much. And I think that, I know I'm totally rambling here, but I think when you do stuff like that, it reminds you there's like a path to whitetails where people want to go, I want to get my hands on something really good and I can set it up. And every Halloween when I go out there, they come into the food plot or they come into the water hole or whatever. And that's what I want. And some people, like I have buddies who have that now and they don't want anything else and they're super happy. And I'm like, that's for that guy. But there are people who they won't be happy with that. Like they need that mystery and that challenge and that different thing than that. And you just kind of figure out after a while, like whether you are or you aren't, And like you said, like when I asked you about passing up those deer, you're like, no, I didn't feel bad about it. Like I'm still happy with my hunting. I'm like, then you're on the right path. If you were like, man, I'm really pissed at myself, I should have shot that 130. Then now you know the path. Like you better take a different path, buddy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, dude, well, first I'm stoked for you. Like when I saw that post and you sent me you sent me a text, like I think shortly after it happened, and I was super pumped for you, man, because I know that's been on your list of things. But going back to what you were saying with like happy with your hunt, I think it's natural, like whenever something doesn't work out the way you want it to, like you might be down in the dumps a little bit, right? Like where, because in my mind I'm thinking, whenever those opportunities presented themselves, I'm like, oh man, it's like if I just would have been using my compound, like it would have been dead like a week ago. Like I'd be done. I could go to a different state, right? And so you certainly have like some thoughts like that. And I was texting with a buddy of mine. He's from Montana, my buddy Luke. Awesome hunters, like one of the best hunters I know. Just like a consummate like outdoorsman. Kills whatever he decides to hunt. Like if he's using a stick bow or whatever, he's just like one of those guys. And we were texting back and forth, and he was like, how's it going? I was like, oh, 3 encounters, 25 yards, this, that, the other. And he's like, you beat him. You just don't have the mount. He was like, dude, you got to within 25 yards 3 times of a 5.5-year-old deer, a 5.5-year-old whitetail on the ground. He was like, I don't know how much more you wanted to, how much closer you wanted to get, or, what you need for the fulfillment, And when he said that, I was like, you know what? I was like, you're right. You know what I mean? And that kind of changed my perspective, and I was able to kind of get back in the hunt and found another one, stalked another one, screwed that up, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, man, it's, you got me stoked, man. I'm ready to get back out into the timber now. It's like, I'm not putting the longbow down. I got still like a little more than, a month and a half or so of hunting left. So I think I'm going to go give it hell. I'm going to try to put something on the ground with it. Like at this point for me, it's like, if I can kill anything with it before the end of the season, I'll be stoked. That's where I'm at right now.
Have you killed anything with a trad bow yet?
No,
man.
No.
I've killed a few deer with a recurve, not a longbow. And I mean, one of my smallest mount that I have in my house is a buck that I killed with a recurve. And it's just one of my favorites. 'Cause it's like, it's hard to describe, because most people now will never go through it. But when you're used to shooting a vertical bow just out of a tree stand, and then, like you said, 20 yards and in. Okay. Well, you think about like how many people are shooting out to 40, 50 yards now? Like a lot of people. Like if a buck walks in at 30 yards and most people have a compound, most people are shooting. Like that's just what it is. but it's not only just that. Like when you're on your stand and a buck walks, he's walking in and you're like, oh, he's going to pass right by me. And then he takes that move and he turns to the left and you're like, now I just turn to the left and I shoot him. When you've got a bow that's like 60 inches tip to tip, like all of a sudden, all of that like zone behind you or to your side changes. And I don't know about you, but I shoot, like when I shoot a trad bow, I cant the bow, it's kind of, I don't hold it straight up and straight down. I just always have shot that way. And so that's even worse because you just can't get anywhere, like turning to your left. And you don't think about that stuff until you're out there. And then you're like kind of running through your scenarios, or a deer comes in and you're like, man, you're just limited in ways that are just so crazy. And then, but also, I shot, just a couple deer, but I shot a doe one time with a recurve, and you think that you don't really have any advantages when you're instinctive shooting. But I was sitting in this stand in this valley in southeastern Minnesota, and this big doe came trotting through the woods, and I never even thought about it. I mean, I've shot a million fish and small game and stuff with recurves, like moving, and I just thumped her. She was close, and I'm like, I don't know if that would have happened with a compound. Like, I don't know if it would have been so just sort of muscle memory. And so you're like, I guess there's like a little bit of an advantage that you can get in certain scenarios, but mostly it's just like so hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons, right? Like the pros for me is exactly what you were saying, which is why I was stoked to use it on the ground, like hunting in the plains, because I was like, a lot of times, man, those deer come in so quiet whenever you're set up somewhere that you usually don't see them until they're almost right on top of you already. Right? I was like, so the advantage of like not having to take this big like arcing draw and like get straight, you know what I mean? Where it's like I could kind of just, I don't want to say snap shoot's not the right word, but it's like I don't have a whole lot of setup. I can pull it up, pull it back, and just let it rip, right? And my whole shot sequence is a fraction of what it would be if I were shooting a compound, or can be, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily that it has to be. I mean, you can certainly pull, hold, and then walk through like your shot sequence if you have one or whatever the case is. But the advantage is too is that if it's close and you're really confident with your equipment, you can get a shot off pretty quick when you otherwise wouldn't be able to, right? But the disadvantage is that you see your target deer 3 times at 25 yards and can't kill it. So there's that.
I mean, those are the choices we make, buddy.
I ain't bitter though. I ain't bitter. Just so
it's only going to be better when you do get it right, man. Like when it happens.
Yeah. I'm stoked. I mean, it's part of me. I like the fact that it just isn't heavy. Like my shoulder doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like that's the other kind of like pro to it. So where it's like, I don't mind carrying it. It's like there gets the point where it's like I'm carrying my compound and like it's my bad shoulder that I'm usually carrying it with, right? And it's like at the end of like a week of toting that thing around the woods, I'm always like, dude, my shoulder is freaking killing me. And like with this one, it's like it weighs nothing, so it's no problem. But man, I've kept you here just about an hour and a half, dude. Don't be sensitive to your time. Make sure you can get doing all the stuff you need to do tonight. Maybe go shave, clean yourself up before you get on TV and all that stuff. But before you do
I gotta go for a run, buddy. I gotta head to the gym here.
Nice. Got to get that swole on. I got a little smaller, man. I was up to, before I left, I mean, obviously I took 3 weeks off from the gym, but I was up to like 180, which was crazy heavy for me because it was, I guess like a year and a half roughly, or maybe just a little more than a year and a half. I went from 158 to 180. So that was,
got them now, gains, bro.
Yeah, I know. The guys at the gym are all accusing me of taking TRT at this point now. So, but now it's like I'm back, like being off for 3 weeks. It's like I'm back down to like probably like 174 or something like that. So I gotta try to get them gains back, son. But before you go get your gains, let people know where they can find all the stuff you got going on Meat Eater, etc.
So
you got the new podcast too that you're doing, right? The dog stuff as well.
Yep. So we got Foundations on the Wired to Hunt network. I have Houndations on the Cal of the Wild network, which is all about dogs and bird dogs. And I'm gonna drop a show very soon here. I think I'm gonna call it How Not to Be a Dipshit with Your Dogs. I just had a guy. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. When I was pheasant hunting, I was in the hotel. I went out to get my charger out of my truck. I forgot it. There was a guy walking out there with a Weimaraner who I could almost, as soon as I saw that dog, I was like, I think that dog's going to bite me, because it was a nutcase, like a lot of those dogs are. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Right. And that dog bit me in the ass when I was walking by. It was a light bite, but I just turned around to the dude. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, just
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so I'm going to write about that and some other stuff about how to be a good dog owner. But they can
Right.
check that out at Meat Eater. All the stuff I write, all the articles, all the films that we produce a lot of freaking content. And it's all at themeateater.com, so they can check it out there.
Cool. Awesome, buddy. Well, hey, man, happy Thanksgiving to you. Have a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time with the fam. Hopefully you get a little bit of downtime to do that before you're out on your next voyage. And I'll look forward to keeping up with you and checking in with you as the rest of the season kind of rolls out. And then one of these days we'll get together face to face. We'll make that happen.
Definitely. Awesome. Thanks, brother.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.